Welcome back, everyone, to Deadlock Fight Night Pacific, presented by Intel. I'm ZP here with DDK and Dan. We just got our first taste of some of the action in the Pacific region, and now we get to go on and see even more action in Pacific, see what the metas have been on the other side of the world.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Also, again, as we mentioned, seeing other players from different games like coming into Deadlock and seeing if they can make a name for themselves is going to be exciting as well. And ZP, what's also exciting is you're wearing a shirt. I haven't seen you in a button up in a while.
Well, believe it or not, there was a time where I was nothing but dress shirts and suits, but esports a little bit has gone back in time, but we keep things a little bit more formal on this side of the globe. But if you're just tuning in wondering what in the world is going on, because this is a different time for Deadlock Fight Night than when we're usually on, this is our format here today at Deadlock Fight Night, where it's a little bit different here in Pacific, where rather than it just being two challenging teams and one defending team, we have one defending team, Egoisto, who got there for our first Deadlock Fight Night via a qualifier that was held, and then 4 invited teams also from that initial qualifier. We just saw Avengers take on OT in a best of 1. OT wins that one away. And now, Dan, we head in the Made in Deadlock versus Happy Buffalo, which is also essentially a Korea versus China matchup. So get a taste of some Korean Deadlock action here in this best of 1.
Yeah, and what's interesting for me as well, with more of a Counter-Strike background, a Quake background, in those games in particular, it's taken a very long time, I think, for the Asian region to catch up. Correct me if I'm wrong, CP, but that's not really been the case in hero shooters as much.
No, not at all. People thought that Korea would take a long time in Overwatch, and by the first World Cup, it was all over as far as international competition was concerned. They simply came out on top and held that spot basically forever. And when you look at the Made in Deadlock roster, I mean, look, you see a lot of interesting names from various different games, whether it be from Valorant, whether it be from Overwatch, whether it be from StarCraft even, Nightmare, not the most common crossover from being a StarCraft player into a hero shooter. You have FaxFox from Fortnite. I mean, you got it all. And of course, I'll do a little bit of extra thing on Gable Shi, who of course I casted quite a bit back in the Overwatch League era. Former Boston Uprising player, former off-tank. Yeah, and Happy Buffalo by comparison, more homegrown Deadlock talent here, Dan. But some Apex pedigree with Icy. Used to play in LGS.
And it's interesting to see the transition into a game like Deadlock, because it's a new game, and the players that are really truly smart really, I think, stand out early on, because you have to learn more quickly. That's kind of what it's about, because eventually, like, you'll play long enough, the metas will kind of consolidate and everyone will kind of agree like what the best practices are, but we're not in that territory just yet. And so it's interesting to take players from the context of being in a place where the meta is in a very static place, where it's just about the grind, to a game like Deadlock, where so much is open for interpretation. And that's something I love about this game.
Well, also, it's early in the game, too, so if you're just generally talented at games, you'll find your own way. You'll find your own interpretation of the game and find your own ways of breaking the meta and, kind of be a trendsetter early on. But speaking of trendsetters, at the very least, when it comes to facial hair, we got Blank here joining us for this match as our analyst. Blank, welcome back.
Hello, dude. I'm back again. I don't think this is a trendsetter moment. I feel like maybe I need to shade this thing off by the end of the show. Getting a lot of flack for it right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, Jason kind of, left you out to dry, where you thought Jason was still rocking it, and before the show, just shaved it off. I mean, it was 2 weeks before the show, but whatever. Two weeks. Blink of the eye if you're thinking about it.
It's a running gag from him. He grows the mustache back, and then he says UFO, and then he shaves it off, and it's like, what's going on? I can't help it. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. I think both Happy Buffalo as well as Mid are definitely 2 interesting teams, and like you said, huge amount of pedigree on both sides. I think for Happy Buffalo a little bit less. But I think I'd absolutely agree with DDK in terms of the fact that there's a lot open to interpretation inside of Deadlock. I mean, you had some extreme aimers who have just succeeded off the back of that. I mean, Lef is definitely one to talk about in that category. But in a similar vein, you have people who are just very good at macro, and that a lot of times can just win you games.
Yeah, I can add on to that point as well, because we saw the double support style in the previous game. in Europe, we've seen pretty much every style win matches, as well as North America, whether it's like no front lines, no support, like, you know, double support. Like there's like a lot of like different ways that we have seen actually look legit in this game so far. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how this works here, and whether we'll see any surprises in terms of hidden value, because sometimes there are like certain ways to play a game that are hidden in plain sight that are super good and everyone should be doing, but no one's doing it. And I've seen this in like games like Counter-Strike, where for years no one realized like one gun was like really OP, and then one day everyone just starts using it. It's like, oh, okay, this is actually really sick. So
well,
let's see.
Well, we do have some insight, at least when it comes to stats. Jason was out here collecting some good stat graphics for us, and in this case we got a FaxFox versus Ashang head to head right now, and it's interesting looking at the souls per minute, where you know, they might just build them differently in Fortnite, guys, because FaxFox just pumping out the souls per minute, the damage, the kills, objectively looking real good.
Yeah, I think for FaxFox, I was talking about it earlier, but I think he's probably the most impressive player I've seen over on mid, just in terms of what he was able to bring out in terms of statistics alone. Like, you look at it and you're impressed straight away. So I think for FaxFox, I'm curious to see how he plays on the Warden. I believe he plays a Majestic Leap based gameplay, which I'd be excited to see here. Just in terms of Warden, yeah, 2 is decent at getting around the map, but having a little bit of extra maneuverability will certainly help you. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to see this one forward. We already saw Sire in that last game over on OT dominate on Mirage. I'd like to see something like that happen again.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because again, some of these players might be a bit notorious for playing certain roles or heroes, but yeah, you can ban that stuff out at the DFN format. So
yeah,
that's something that'll also be interesting to see who's most targeted or affected, and having like a really strong Warden player can certainly be a defining feature of a lineup. So curious to see what how that plays out in the draft.
Well, we have to be curious no longer, because the draft, we are good to go, and we'll see just what is in store in this draft, where again, you know, we got a little bit of a preview in terms of preferred picks going back into the qualifier just held earlier in the week. But there's also the element here too, where if you figure you're going to be qualified, you know, you save some of your draft strategy for the actual tournament, which wouldn't be the first time. In fact, in North America, I've had teams complain to me saying, yeah, I don't really know what's going on. Actually, it was more EU. The EU teams were complaining that teams were really holding back in scrims relative to what they would bring out in Fight Night. But opening up here, Dan, Abrams ban, first ban, you know, again, this is kind of what we've been seeing more in Pacific, where more of a focus on frontliners, because it's been a long time since we've seen an Abrams first ban in NA or EU.
Yeah, it seems to be the way. Blank, you know, you you were mentioning this previously as well. We also saw in the previous draft that another opening ban was Shiv, and I think were you saying that even Mo would be an expected opening ban as well, potentially?
I mean, it could be in this lineup. I mean, a lot of times all these players fall back onto Mo and Krill. It seems to be like a lot of the teams are picking Mo and Krill as like their third pick. Sinclair getting banned doesn't surprise me. But Holiday, both teams have a strong Holiday player in Teru as well as Icy. I would expect mid to be banning out Holiday here for Icy, but we'll see what happens. I'm not entirely sure who they're going to grab. 7 picked up first. I mean, we had that last game. That was the first pick. It's a curious pick, to say the least.
Well, here's what I think. In terms of ban strategy, I think the first ban Sinclair, on top of Sinclair being a really good hero right now, I also think you want to ban Sinclair if you're looking to angle towards picking up Warden, right? Just because one of the most effective audience participation targets in the entire game right now is on the Warden, right? So if you're planning on picking Warden the first 2 picks, which I think might be likely with Happy Buffalo's draft, because I think they're going to draft a little bit similar to what we saw from OT in the previous game. Yeah, I think Warden is probably going to come into play here, and you've protected a little bit with the Sinclair.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I think the amount of times I've been in lane as Sinclair and just copied a Warden's ult, and then we just battled it out against one another, just stood in front. It happens quite frequently. Mirage picked up, and then Warden for FaxFox. So Warden taken away from FaxFox. Sorry, Happy Buffalo will be picking that one up. And I think It's an interesting one because I think XX is the only one to play Warden, and he's played it once.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as well, like just actually adding on to the Sinclair point. Also, if this is if let's say you're expecting a Moan Krill to be picked, it is such a nice auto to steal, on the fly when the Moan Krill's trying to like run in there, being able to like lock somebody down. There's just a lot of applications for the audience participation that are super strong. But seeing the Holiday pick come in, I think feels definitely quite normal, given how extremely good Holiday is, despite some of the recent nerfs for Holiday. Still like a very, very good here, especially in the early laning phase. Lots of ways to initiate with the jump pad, the barrels, just absolute menace. And with the lasso as well, also has a lot of great counters with that ult for a lot of heroes, especially any flyers. It can be particularly annoying for. So nothing unusual there. Infernus over a Wraith though, or something similar is a little questionable, but.
Yeah, and I think to me, when I look at Maiden Deadlock's comp right here, it's something that is very much focused on a more historical late game. Now, I don't even know if I necessarily rate Infernus over Wraith in the late game right now, but at one point in Deadlock, that was kind of the consensus, right? Then Infernus got hit with like a million nerfs over time. Interesting though in Pacific that Infernus is being rated as highly. Meanwhile, Happy Buffalo, again, maybe more of a take of how the Chinese teams are playing here, but very focused on frontline, not too dissimilar from how EU has played at times in recent memory, especially to some of the older Buff Enjoyer comps before they became Virtus Pro. But Warden, guys, strong frontline security. Yeah, no, not goats quite yet. Like, look, let's keep the goats in the pen, but we'll see what they ban here. Banning the Viscous, yeah, I mean, kind of makes sense, especially if you're trying to take away frontliners from Maiden Deadlock on the second round here, Blank.
Yeah, I guess so. I just feel like there's more targeted picks you could go for. I mean, if anything, I expected someone to be picking up Calico over on the side of Happy Buffalo and then banning out maybe a Moan Krill instead of a Viscous, just because then you're practically leaving, I think it's Nightmare with just with nothing. I think he plays Moan Krill and Calico, and that's it. That's all we've seen from him. So maybe you could have pulled out a Paradox. I don't know. But right now, Paradox does get banned out, so there is quite a limiting factor on your initiators. So I think Moan Krill would be a very strong pickup for Happy Buffalo. They would have quite the fat front line at that point.
Maybe a Kelvin coming into play now, like trying to get that support online. Kelvin's been such a high priority in terms of supports across like EU and NA right now. So yeah, it makes sense. We'll see the Kelvin coming into play. And now if you're Maiden Deadlock, I doubt you can probably save the Ivy pick, or I don't know if McGuinness will be, if that's in vogue necessarily. It's not in vogue really at the moment in EU and NA. So that we see that this fourth pick. But the front line is a bit missing, and Moan Krill could be a pickup here potentially.
I will say, I mean, obviously you never see it in NAU because Paradox doesn't fall that low, but I do like the idea of simply taking away the Paradox in the second ban phase when you've already secured your playmaker, right? Because in general, okay, sometimes in Deadlock comps, teams will go like double playmaker potentially, but usually when they go one, they go either Holiday or Paradox, right? So if you've already picked up Holiday, the idea of going forward and going, okay, we're just going to take away your Paradox options because you'd probably add it to your team later makes sense. Calico going this deep into the draft also, to me, pretty good value as far as frontliners go. Again, you compare it to NA and EU where it's valued. I mean, Calico arguably one of the top two frontliners in the game right now. So I'm looking at the Maiden Deadlock draft, Blank, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, I think that overall this is a very, very strong roster. It's got a good mix of late game and early game. And I mean, the Holiday does get ahead. She can start to be a massive menace. And for Happy Buffalo, yes, they've got guys, but the lane clear isn't huge. This does give a lot of opportunity for Holiday to move around the map. Moan Krill does finally come out there for Happy Buffalo. I don't think they had too many options left with their actual hero pool that we've seen from them in their qualifiers. So it was sort of expected for them to pull this one out. I am curious to see what the 6th pick is going to be for Happy Buffalo, but I think I'd agree with you, ZP. Right now, Maiden Deadlock is looking like a fairly scary best of one team.
Yeah, I'd love to see Yamato here because just the pairing with Mo and Krill is really nice. I get something a bit more abusive, but this makes a lot of sense too. Having some extra backline is never bad. You've already got the Warden, Geist, and Mo, and obviously Kelvin there and more on the front line. So pretty balanced. And Vindicta is another hero that we've seen get high priority in NA and EU, and so far hasn't made much of an appearance except now.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the Vindicta come in here, I think when you look at the overall comp Happy Buffalo has, they're actually incredibly reliant on Vindicta having a good early to mid game, and they're not a team that has like a lot of comeback potential, right? You're not running a Paradox or Holiday. I mean, you have the Mo and Krill, which can sometimes work for pickoffs unassisted, but overall, I don't think Happy Buffalo is like really running a team that is going to be able to play too well from behind. Whereas Made in Deadlock, whether it be roams with the Calico, whether it be via Holiday, I think they have more options to set up ganks, even with the Talon Owls, right? So to me, I look at this matchup as one where Happy Buffalo needs to stay middle, at least like median, average souls to ahead. If they fall behind, it's going to be hard. Whereas Made in Deadlock has a little bit more range to their overall outcome.
Yeah, it's one of these games where Made in Deadlock, I see this composition. I'm like, if you, like you say, if they even get a little bit far ahead, it's going to be a bit of a stomp over towards Happy Buffalo. It's very difficult. Vindicta's a risky pick versus this as well, with the Talonal, with the Owl, even Holiday just with Lasso. But not only that, you've also got 7 static charge. Like, you don't even have to pick up a knockdown here for her to shut it down. She would have to get ahead and rely on that Kelvin and Mo and Krill to do a lot of that peel in the front line. Keeping them back, but there is a potential here. There is a potential.
Yeah, getting maybe some guaranteed assassinates with the combo from Mo and Krill does seem like it could be kind of nice. But yeah, having the Talon there and just how active I feel the Made in Deadlock lineup could be. Holiday, Calico, Talon. That's a lot of like very active potential, like early to mid harass that could, I think, be somewhat crippling for Vindicta unless they're able to find ways to keep it safe. And because Vindicta's just not very mobile. She got that was like one of the more recent nerfs, is just like just owning her movement speed completely, so you're just like very static. So that is one of the hardest and most challenging things about playing Vindicta. But like it does feel like the front line is like really solid for Happy Buffalo, so I feel like pretty confident of how they can play the objective game. But I feel like Made in Deadlock, we've seen a lot of success in the UNA from just like these hyperactive early lane comps that feature like Calico and Holiday.
Yeah, the 4 coffees at 3 a.m. comp.
Yeah. Oh, what I'll say here in general, I think Happy Buffalo, like especially when you look at their front line, right? Should they get ahead, the fact that they're running like Mo, Warden, Geist, and a Kelvin on top of it, right, is that it's actually going to be pretty hard to deal with them should they get like significantly far ahead. However, on the same note, should they get behind, you have this entire thing. It's kind of the curse of frontliner comps, right? Where they feel great where you're even to ahead, but when you're super invested in frontliners and you don't have a whole lot of playmaking ability and you fall behind, well, it may just be over. To me, the X factor here is going to be the Vindicta play, right? How that helps them deal with the early and mid game, especially with Holiday and Calico pressure as they roam, right? If the Vindicta can kind of go through all that, not get sniped down by the Talon, and get multiple early assassinates, I think there's a world where Happy Buffalo can kind of set the early and mid game to their pace and get ahead. But to me, it's all on the skill and positioning of the Vindicta player and dealing with what's going to be some, honestly, very difficult pressure coming in from Made in Deadlock.
Yeah, because Happy Buffalo right now, they have the "we're going to run at you" comp. And I think that's going to be very, very difficult. Like you said, ZP, if they get ahead, sure, it's going to be disgusting to play against, especially with that Vindicta as the linchpin in that back line. Being able to just cut off targets that even get a little bit low, that's really rough. But the early presence required from some of these players like Fax Fox as well as the Vindicta, it's going to be tough for Happy Buffalo. I will be very impressed if they're able to pull it off, and I'm excited to see it happen. But I'm worried for them. Definitely worried for them.
Dan, I love the logos there where, you know, are you sending a message when you say that you're the boss, but also the mid boss? Like, it's kind of, on one hand, you are the boss of Deadlock, but you have mid in the name. So, you know, a little bit mixed signals from that.
True.
In my book.
Yeah, we can see how the early lanes are shaping out at the moment. Well, we actually have Kelvin with Mirage for Happy Buffalo on lane 4, meeting up against the 7. So we used to see this a lot in the NA region as well, where they would like try to just start out on the solo lane with an extra player to give just extra, like some extra denial, extra pressure, just get your solo laner a little bit ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, also, anytime you can catch the other team off guard, which clearly isn't the case here because it's a duo lane in lane 4, right? Duo v duo. But, you know, there's always a world where you bring in 2, they're not expecting it, you get a quick pick off. But, yeah, all the action right now seems to be going down on lane 4. You have the double up in lane 1, so some uneven matchups, but if there's any hero that can kind of deal with a 2v1 pressure and still be okay, it is Geist, right? Like, still one of the best last-hitting weapons in the game, still able to apply decent pressure with her bomb, so, you know, it's something that Rain should be able to deal with, you would think.
And funnily enough, like, actually, Nightmare on the Calico actually was on lane 2, but just, like, came across very, very quickly. So it kind of looked like a gank, but yeah, now settles just into 2-player pressure, just really pushing the lane up. This is going to be interesting, as you say, to see how Rain will handle it. You know, we talk a lot about losing lanes well in this game, you know, because there will be these very imbalanced situations sometimes where your job is just to survive, maximize, you know, last hits and denies as best as you can, and try to keep that damage off your Guardian, but not always possible.
Also, it's lane 3, it's Gableshi that's dealing with the 3, what's it called, the 1 versus 2 in lane 3, where, you know, I was hoping to see Gableshi play more of an off-tank role just because of his history in Overwatch League, but wasn't to be the case. Instead, we get the DPS Gableshi, which still might be pretty exciting. But shifting over here, the Teru, quick punish on the Icy, sets up Maiden Deadlock for a quick little lead there, Dan.
Yeah, really nice shots. Did everything perfectly. A great gank coming across, and now actually going back again is Teru on that holiday to lane 4. So very active early game from Maiden Deadlock right now, I gotta say.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not too surprising with the comp they picked. I mean, maybe it's a little surprising with how aggressively they're going for it this early on. But, you know, I would have expected a little bit more of the roaming rotations once we hit 3K, but hey, look, if it works, it works. Also, speaking of dives, lane 3 getting a little bit spicy with Gableshi getting pushed all the way back. You just look at the mini-map and you see the looming Mo and Vindicta just rushing down Talon, but Gableshi able to get away from it. 11K versus 11K, though, still relatively even between both sides.
Yeah, and like you say, I think, and I agree totally, that focus needs to be for Happy Buffalo on Icy and Icy's performance, and Icy has the bodyguard of Mo on the lane, just able to ensure that, you know, Icy can get up to the Assassinate level 3 as fast as possible, somewhat safely, and has been somewhat insulated from ganks. As I say that, though, we will actually have SPVC going across the lane two for a gank, and then some tower pressure with the Warden. So again, just constant rotations, and now ZP we get Nightmare coming back in to deal with this poor position, and you're chasing down the Warden, a lot of damage. I don't think you're going to be able to escape on this one.
You would think, and yet, hang on, Schlub. Oh, the parry! Such a well-timed parry as Mo comes in for the hammer blow. Oh boy, that is excellent from Shalub.
Absolutely baited. That was you kind of saw it coming a little bit on that one, but you know, sometimes you just see red ZP, you just gotta throw the hands.
Oof, that you know, it was things where it looked good from Nightmare. I think the weird thing is I feel like Nightmare let off the gas for a second there and could have had the kill like way closer to the tower. Just didn't quite pan out there, Dan. And then the parry just made things all the worse. But even all that still being a thing, mid a bit up here thus far. Sorry, sucker. So not the end of the world.
Oh wow, this lane 1 pressure has amounted to a 450 Guardian takedown. That is gonna, especially given how active Maiden Deadlock like wants to be with this composition and has proven to be with the play as well on the field. That's a great start for them, because this is going to give them even more ability to roam ZP, because they don't have to worry about, you know, looking after that lane 1 as much. And so now that the pressure's likely going to fall more into the Vindicta, because you've got to imagine Maiden Deadlock are also thinking, what are Happy Buffalo's win conditions? And you're going to want to like just nerf that Vindicta as much as you can.
Well, one of the ways you nerf the Vindicta too is I think Gableshe is going to be Vindicta's shadow for a lot of the game. I mean, they've already been laned against each other, right? But we've seen effectively that Talon is one of the best heroes in the game at sort of mitigating, you know, Vindicta's fly zones early on, right? So watch the rotation between Gableshe versus Icy, which is going to be interesting to me, but also some rotations. Nightmare in here on the Calico, and I love how teams have used Calico as just almost a playmaking frontliner, and again, Nightmare on the move, this time looking for Icy over in lane 3, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll get the assist there too from Terry, also coming across to maybe try to facilitate a gank around lane 3, where that's Vindicta, I see, is currently. And bring themselves back onto lane. A lot of just switching back and forth, obviously doing some jungling on the way as well. And just trying to respond also to the pressure. You know, that lane 4 needed some attention. So Terry's back on the case. We're going to get Frozen Shelter drop down. We've got a 7 cloud right at the top as well. I'm not going to find too much damage to the Shelter, but they're going to get the kill regardless. Kelvin will not be able to survive. And Maiden Deadlock, they really are looking pretty awesome right now. 5k souls ahead at the 6.5 minute mark. That's actually pretty significant.
Yeah, and one thing that's worth noting here too is that it's been a relatively grounded performance from Icy, where I don't think Icy has really left lane 3 at all, even at about 5k souls for Vindicta. It's a little bit of a passive Vindicta move that I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, you think about the times where Vindicta has done well. Vindicta has done well by going everywhere effectively, like trying to min-max your assassinate value early on, but this has been a Vindicta that is, you know, stayed at home the entire time. A travel adverse Vindicta, if you will, Dan.
Yeah, and you know, I've got some points to make about that in a moment, but we have a bit of damage exchange here on lane 4. We've got also the potential for a gank because SPVC on the Mo is looking, I think, for that combo, but just couldn't quite find the opening. Back onto lane 3 instead to assist Icy. But yeah, I think with Vindicta, especially with how poor the movement speed is, you're really committed to any rotations you make with Vindicta right now. And so if it doesn't work out, you do lose a lot of value. And oh no, they're going to get crunch CP.
Yeah, we got Nightmare coming in on the Calico. Doesn't full commit, in fact. However, Icy just taken down by Teru, who's the real threat in on the rotation. And mid right now, Dan, definitely getting a sizable lead, getting more and more sizable as it goes on. The lasso coming on in, pulls Mirage into the tower. If Mirage gets away or not, gonna be dicey. No, absolutely not getting away. And the kills just continue to stack up for mid.
I have to say, there is something that's a little bit weird about Holiday, like the whole like Goomba stomping mechanic off of the jump pad. It kind of looks weird to like stun people and do so much damage when Holiday's character is so like low profile. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's Mo dropping down from the sky that weighs, you know, a ton or something. It just looks kind of fun.
It's the boots. Like the boots, like they're made for walking and stomping, and apparently have like very, very sharp spurs in them. Is my best guess here. Thinking about
all right, good enough
the
for me.
biomechanics of it. Yeah, no. I mean, I don't think there needs to be more of an explanation. But 43k to 38k coming up on first buffs in about a minute, and you know, this is a time here, Dan, where like if it gets too much more in terms of gap between the teams, it's gonna be really hard for Happy Buffalo to really get benefit off of their front line, right? It'll get to a point where mid will just simply burn through them. So, you know, if anything's gonna happen, it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you know, one thing to mention here in terms of the macro strategy here for Maiden Deadlock, they took down that lane 1 tower at 450 on the clock, and this has enabled way more efficient farming for the Infernus on intro. But we can return to that point again. A lot of action here on lane 4 as the Guardian was under assault, and Happy Buffalo responding. They're in a 2v3 though, so they are outnumbered. They've got to be careful about that. They're going to lose both players, in fact. XX and XPVC going down in the defense. That Guardian is at full risk now against 3 players. We get a TP from 1. This could facilitate. Actually, no, canceling the TP intro. Wants to help finish off the Guardian. And the reason is because we've got Ivy turning up to defend that lane 1 tower. So much working out here on the macro for Maiden Deadlock. They're actually crushing it.
Also, SPVC in that last fight didn't even get a chance to drop the combo. It was just fully initiated on by mid. And it's kind of the opposite that you want when you're running a Mo comp, right? Like, the ideal world for Happy Buffalo is not this. Not to get lassoed into the tower and just pummeled as a Warden. down he goes. But yeah, I mean, you think about ideal engagements, you'd want rotations where your Mo is essentially feeding free assassinates to your Vindicta or something along those lines, not your Mo scrambling as mid engages on you. And now it's a 10k soul deficit as mid buffs, of course, have spawned and the first urn is in motion.
Yeah, and I want to just highlight the soul differential right now, because you're seeing it, 3k, 4k ahead of most players is intro. And so I was kind of beginning to mention this previously. So they got that lane 1 Guardian very quickly. And so intro can just push that lane and then just start farming the jungle efficiently and then come back to his tower to safely farm the wave of creeps. So they have a system worked out there to really just like create a lot of farm for intro whilst protecting that lane 1 Guardian. And all the while, so active is the rest of the Maiden Deadlock lineup across the rest of the map, as we're seeing here again on lane 2. The Holiday Calico dynamic has been so oppressive, and it has forced Happy Buffalo to consistently just be reacting. Like you were mentioning, they want to get some initiations with Icy, but they just have to keep defending constantly.
Oh, I mean, you can't really say enough about the income allocation to intro right now. I mean, this is such a fat infernus at this point in the game that it makes Hydration look skinny in some of the NA games. And Hydration is like one of the best teams around at good income allocation. However, quick grab that turns into a death for Mo and Krill. Not the right opportunity. Is Taro going to be able to go? Taro at 100 HP, just barely sliding out of the danger zone. And man, oh man, for Happy Buffalo, I feel like a window is closing here, Dan. If we look at Icy right now, if something can't be found, if you can't put together a few pickoffs in the next like 3 or 4 minutes, I just don't know how the soul deficit is going to get any better.
Yeah, they need a string of kills for sure, including some assassinates. But all right, it's going to go from bad to slightly more bad, I suppose. Calvin gets taken out as well. So yeah, just consistently getting caught, and there's been some narrow escapes that Maiden Deadlock have made that just keep that gap increasing. Happy Buffalo. And intro's eventually going to start to be like, yeah, I think I've had enough of farming, and I'm about to leverage this like item advantage and start just stat checking people. And so I'm kind of worried for that arc of this match.
Yeah, I mean, across the board right now, you're starting to hit the point where you look at characters like Warden, right, for Happy Buffalo, and think about their front line and how it goes. Their guys still reasonably competitive, but for Shilu, it's going to be difficult. For SPVC, very difficult. I mean, SPVC is basically a combo bot at this point. It's not the Mo that stays alive for fighting a long time. It's a Mo that, selflessly sacrifices to feed someone else. It is about where you're at right now. And the window of opportunity is getting smaller and smaller. 13 minutes in, and we're also at the point now, Dan, too, where if mid is able to get 2 or 3 kills in middle, they're going to run it straight to mid boss with the advantage they have.
Yep, that's absolutely going to happen. And Happy Buffalo haven't really shown that they have all that much to stop anything at this point. As you say, they are so far behind. Now there's somewhat of a consolidation of players here for Maiden Deadlock once again, as they look to try to take the initiation around lane 2, looking for the kills, as at the same time we get that lane 1 Walker pressure coming through as well. This is not going to get denied. There's no way to deny this from Maiden Deadlock. This is going to be a guaranteed Walker. Trying to do some damage here, but you can see Intro is just tanking it. Doesn't care about the guy's bombs. Is just going to be chilling. They get the Walker, and they're going to get out of his EP. There is a response, but it's kind of late. But maybe it's still in time to get something. But no. Okay, Ivy will just fly away. Fly away.
I do really like how mid is approaching the macro game here, where they've clearly designated some parts of their team to be more active, and they've gone to intro and say, intro, you farm. Your role is farm. Like, Infernus is good with farm. We're going to make sure that's the case. Is just brutal Ivy chase down. The Frozen Shelter not nearly in time. And I do wonder, I mean, is it possible the name change in the middle of the game? Because, Happy Buffalo, I don't believe they're happy right now. At the very least, it's like slightly distressed Buffalo.
Yeah, it should have like the logo could just like change as they take damage, kind of like the the Doom face guy.
Or you go to a real a deep cut. The old Wolf beams whenever the LA Gladiators would lose, and you would just drop the like Sadiators. It'd be like the crying lion instead of the happy lion of the Gladiators.
Nice. All this Overwatch lore is lost on me, ZP, but You explained it well. I understand what you mean.
Yeah, it's enough that like some people in chat at the very least get it, and also I mean Wolf himself may be watching, and that's really who the set is reference is for. It's a target of at least one, you know.
Nice.
Precise payload as Precise is Teru taking down XX and it's rough.
The big combo, nice Warpstone into the combo, and looking to get something going here with that Mercurial pick. Able to take down the Guardian, so they're getting something back in, towards their favor. Still though, a cool 22k souls behind, and again 15 or 16 minutes. That is sizable. That's significant. The advantage mid and Deadlock have, and they're going to look to continue to extend this as they put the pressure on. Now lane 2 again, a 3v1 here for the Warden. Not a good situation to be in for Happy Buffalo. And again, this game's all about like reacting with the correct numbers, but oh god, this okay, intro, he's turned up now. We've got the arc now where intro is just going to the side to start just destroying people, incinerating them with the item advantage.
I mean, it's definitely at the point, especially you look at the items being bought here too, probably close to getting Ricochet sooner rather than later, and yeah, I mean, the Infernus is going to be a problem, but also the bigger problem is just the fact that general stats-wise, your front line for Happy Buffalo cannot function the way you would like at this point in the game. And the ways back into the game are pretty minimal. I mean, ideally, you need Icy to get pickoffs, but the problem is anytime Icy goes into the air now, Gableshe is going to be just dropping in arrows. Deeply damaging arrows from afar. So the way Happy Buffalo has to play this at this point is near perfection, and that just simply has not been the case thus far.
What to do? Well, this is the problem here as well, ZP, is that the Happy Buffalo lineup does not scale particularly well in comparison to the Maiden Deadlock lineup as it currently stands. So even like trying to lose well and try to play defensively and like looking for that late game, you're still going to be in a really just in deep trouble. And I mean, the mid boss is one way you can turn around games like this, is if there is either a mid boss steal or a fight where you're able to use like good ults if you have like good heroes that can convert well in the mid boss area. But I don't know, it's hard to see it right now for Happy Buffalo going in that direction.
The urn right now being taken around by Visco. Mid not really under any particular pressure right now. It's on Happy Buffalo to make a move. I think though, should they get one kill, or even if they just see things as advantageous, they may just go for the quicker and turn in. The problem is here too is, realistically for mid, all they have to do is wait for 1 or 2 kills at this point, slam mid boss, and go from there. The pressure is more so on Happy Buffalo to find a pickoff, and looking at lane 3, things could be getting a little bit dicey for Icy. Nope, Icy able to get away. So, I kind of like the fact that, this is something that I think Jake would like too if you were in here in the moment, Dan. It's just the fact that mid, despite being ahead, they're not really taking any risks either. They're just making Happy Buffalo do something to, take a risky play to get back into it.
Yeah, and this, my criticism of the previous matchup for the team that won IT was that they didn't farm up, convert the advantage of map control they had by just like finding the timings to farm, because you can absolutely do both. This is like what the best teams can do, is they're able to continue to, they create the map control, they push their lanes and all of that, they get the initiations, they get some of those team fights, but at the same time they balance the farm behind it, so that they aren't leaving any edge off of the table. And I feel like, we're seeing Maiden Deadlock do that pretty effectively right now. And so they don't have to do anything fancy. And eventually they could try to force a mid boss without a pick. Is also a potential. And at that point, you force Happy Buffalo to come and fight you.
Once we get force, we got force here in lane 3. Happy Buffalo trying to make something happen. Maiden Deadlock though immediately responding, just tanking the last stand is Teru. Not caring about it at all. Binding Ward in, Binding Ward dodged. Stormcloud in from Faxbox, bring a little bit of room. Only Icy falling within that fight here so far, though. They still might catch Shilu and XX on the back end. Mirage running for his life, just burned on down by the 7. And with 3 pickoffs, do they send this one mid? Probably about to be 4 here. Not looking super great for Kelvin at the moment. Look at the focus on Macro here. At first, doesn't even care about the Kelvin. Says, you are irrelevant relative to the Walker. And EU, way more bloodthirsty, Dan.
Yeah, and Rain took down the Guardian lane 1, might get the Walker as well, but to be honest, you're going to convert the 2 mid Walkers, and you could just do, they could potentially still do mid boss if they wanted to, offer those Walkers. So looks like they're going to try to catch the guys potentially. No, but it's a bit too slow, and they haven't given themselves enough time to go for the mid boss here. So still though, 30k souls ahead. So I think Made in Deadlock aren't stressing it too much. They picked up the urn, but that's going to be a pretty risky turn in. They're off pretty much full ults online. Happy Buffalo, they're only missing the last stand, which would be really nice for the closed urn turn in. But either way, I still think it's going to be tough for them, just given how far Made in Deadlock are ahead.
Well, Dan, I think what it is a difference in macro prioritization between teams and regions here. I think were mid and NA or EU team, they would have immediately gone mid boss. But in mid's case, you saw the hyper focus onto walkers, right? Even to the point that Intro could have flambéed Brave Buffalo. I mean, it was like a 25% HP Kelvin. It was right there. And Intro had eyes only for the walker. I mean, It was a level of commitment that you would want to see in any of your personal relationships there. Except in this case, it was Intro just, dead set on taking down Walker. But, kind of a good point here is we're seeing mid to sort of secure their advantage. Blank, you've been watching. Any insights from your end from what we've seen between the two teams so far?
I think, well, honestly, for me right now, it's mostly about that early game. That was what changed a lot of things, because when you look at Happy Buffalo, they had a huge amount of lane bullies, and I think that the way they played that out was just to mitigate a lot of that presence in all those lanes, and then just allow Intro to farm. And he went straight into Soul Shredder, Healing Booster, Enduring Spirit, Spirit Lifesteal. It's incredibly hard to get him out in any of these lanes, because he's out healing most of the damage coming through from a lot of, let's be honest, very weakened Happy Buffaloes. It was just a very good way for them to transition towards that mid game, and I think that's the main thing that's got mid to this level of power at this point of the game.
Yeah, and it's still holding on to that urn. ZP, they're trying to convert, but I don't know. It's kind of again, it's the closed area, and you now have all the ults. The last stand is online too, so that would actually be super high value in that spot. So I just don't think you want to go for that. But they're threatening it, so they are forcing at least Happy Buffalo to kind of respect it to some extent, and they're kind of having to hold players around the urn turn-in spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear here that the goal of holding the urn is just to prevent Happy Buffalo from getting any comeback makeup souls from the urn, right? They do not care one iota about turning in themselves, aside from the fact that denies Happy Buffalo from doing the same. They're just nursing their lead, is what we're seeing, pure and simple. And if Happy Buffalo makes a mistake, they will capitalize on it. But mid is playing the long game here more than I think we've seen most teams in Deadlock do so. And it's hard to really find fault with it. Like, it's a very well-coached game plan, is what I'm seeing right now, Dan.
Yeah, and right now, it felt like we were very close to potentially seeing a fight around mid, a pick-off around mid. Mid and Deadlock were looking for that, and that would absolutely have converted into a mid boss, which would likely be sort of perhaps the final nail in the coffin for Happy Buffalo in terms of just getting to a place of an insurmountable advantage for their opponent. But yeah, back into the regular spot and is available to be collected for Happy Buffalo. And they're kind of in a spot where they need to try to go for this to try to make up the souls. But there's some mid-boss pressure whilst the urn is being run. That's no good for Happy Buffalo. They kind of have to, I feel like they have to challenge the CP. If they give up a free mid-boss when all the ults are online, it's a bait as well. They're trying to force the fight.
Yeah, they want the mistake, and right now they're looking for Shilu, I think. In terms of pickoffs, they were at least looking towards Warden. You see Holiday in position to grab the lasso, doesn't go for it here just yet. But now gets it. Just a little bit ahead. Found the opportunity, grabs knockdown right after. The full pressure onto Warden, the frontliner immediately eradicated. Quick, easy one up here for mid. Now looking for a little bit more Holiday in off the back. He's looking for a quick stomp, doesn't get it, but with a two-man advantage, now they go to the middle, and there's nothing fake about this finish, Dan.
Yeah, that's what they've been looking for it, and they finally are going to pick it up. Mid boss, the rejuve's falling, and through it's already 2 players down for Happy Buffalo, looking to try to get the steal. The Mo's going to come in. I don't think there's a world in which they can do that, though. The steal is prevented, and it's going to be a rejuve for Maiden Deadlock. And there is some pushing around the map here for Happy Buffalo, knowing that they couldn't really challenge for that. But at the same time, they are actually not nearly as ahead as I thought, behind as I thought they would be. ZP only 20k souls is actually, it's not over really just yet. I feel like we're kind of framing it in that capacity, but they have to. The problem is now ZP, they got to wait out the rejuve to an extent, and that means they have to give up the entire map.
Well, it's not over, but also part of it has been how mid has been playing, right? Like, again, I think you do the regional comparison. NA and EU, I think mid probably had opportunities that they could have done to put the game away, but they're playing for maximum safety right now, right? And things they could have done to extend their soul lead to 30 or 40k, they haven't done. They're playing about as safe as possible, but also, again, resource allocation, right? You look at where they've put their farm onto. Rain is pretty well farmed as a Geist, relatively speaking, but Intro is an absolute monster at 34k, and the aggregate allocation, kind of pales in comparison to what they've really done, which is put all their eggs into the Intro basket. And right now, I mean, it's put Intro at a spot where you look at items being picked up, like late game, bring the hero online items. You have Ricochet that just got picked up. You got Spiritual Overflow just picked up. It's at the point where Infernus becomes an absolute demon den.
Yeah, it is a huge problem, and another team fight will be breaking out here in lane 2. And this is a very difficult team fight. You've got Happy Buffalo on the retreat here, losing players as they fall back into the base, and 3 of them going down immediately, outcoming all of the ults here for Maiden Deadlock, and they are about to just annihilate this base. There's going to be nothing left except the weakened patron in the moment. They waited for their moment, and like you said, CP, as soon as they knew it was go time, it was perfect.
The one thing I love seeing, by the way, the pure coordination of going in on the shrines. I think they even left some of the guardians on the backside. That was a full 6-man, get in there, shrine dead, patron dead. They still have Rejuvenator. I don't think this is going to be a back off potentially here, Dan. I mean, we'll see. And okay, never mind. It's going to be a back off. They could have stayed, but based on what we've seen, they played safe.
Yeah, they could have stayed. I totally agree. They are very disciplined in their approach, but still, gotta be cautious here because there is a pursuit here. Happy Buffalo, they want to get some value as Maiden Deadlock are escaping from the base. They still have rejuves up though, so if they do die, it's not going to be the end of the world, but it's surely the rejuve is going to be timing out somewhat soon. And Happy Buffalo looking, or rather feeling like this is their moment to maybe find some equalizing fights, but in goes Calico. Nightmare is in the front line, trying to do the damage, creating the distraction for his teammates. And that's going to be Faxbox and Nightmare picking up the next couple of kills. And right now, I don't think this is going to do anything except snowball into the patron dying here, CP. There's just nothing left here to defend Happy Buffalo as they're completely routed.
I think right now mid is more focused on the outskirts. With Intro being down and Rejuvenator not being up to bring him up in the beginning, they're going to be a little bit more opportunistic. They're still going to put pressure, I think, onto the patron, but missing Intro, who is a vast majority of their net worth, they're still going to see if they can just get a pick off first before committing into the patron. And might be the case right now is Rain is getting a bit of a pummeling.
Yeah, got to be cautious here. Just like you say, you're missing a lot of damage. And you can see that there is they can't quite move their way into the pit. They really want to, but as I say that, jump pad helps a lot. And in fact, there it is. We've got the storm cloud right above the pit, and that's going to do unbelievable amounts of damage, hitting absolutely everyone, getting fried, short-circuited as we get a bit of delay coming in because of the frozen shelter.
Wait, they're holding off, Dan. They're holding off. They're absolutely holding off. The frozen shelter buys enough time, and it is Happy Buffalo. Hang on, is it gonna be enough though? It's just not enough. They barely get it. They nearly held it, Dan, but just that last little bit of damage puts Happy Buffalo away. But that was closer than you would have thought.
Oh my god, that was so close. Imagine if they'd actually turned that one around, because at the soul differential, I think would have been like 15k or something like that, surprisingly. And like you said, Intro was outsized in the amount of souls he had compared to the rest of his team. So there was a world where, you know, that could have turned it around to some extent, but it was not to be. Made in Deadlock picking it up, and it feels deserves EP because from start to finish, their macro was impeccable. The choices as to how they chose the comp and then how they played the comp effectively with the Calico and Holiday roams, absolutely great, stunning stuff.
Also, Jason had a great point there. It was Fox was the last one remaining, just throwing fists into the patron. If they had gone in and parried, they actually could have held and kept the game going a little bit longer, which is absolutely ridiculous. But we're gonna bring back in Blank here to talk about the game and just transpired. But you know, to me, Blank, I looked at this and it was kind of a masterclass in macro from mid, where they knew their win conditions, they fed intro, and they took zero risk throughout most of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable, to be honest with them. There was a couple of moments where I thought that potentially they could have stopped just dragging the urn around the map and maybe gone for something more aggressive. If they did pick up urn, they could have gone for an easy fight, I would say. You've got the Inferno Soul, you've also got 7-Up, you've got a lot of deny over those small areas, especially when it's urn-sided on your map. It was a curious one. I do think Teru kind of takes the game away at the start there. He was so strong. And that's when Holiday is at her best, right? Where Barrel feels very, very potent in those first 10 minutes where it's chunking you for half your HP, and he was all over the place. I mentioned it a couple times, but they had a fair few lane bullies like Mo and Krill, as well as Mirage and Vindicta, but they didn't really get too much done. I think even you mentioned it, DDK, was the fact that the Vindicta just wasn't getting a lot of movement done, and it's because Confusion at the end of the day is the best kind of presence on those kind of lanes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's no mobility there. It's like you're having to react constantly to the just consistent aggression everywhere. It's so oppressive, and that's something that I feel like we see teams struggling a lot with at the moment. Like the teams that can abuse that level of harass early on the best with Holiday and Calico, it's rough, man, to be up against that.
Well, that does bring us to our player of the match presented by Intel. Blank, this was your choice, so walk us through it here. Who is your player of the match and why?
Oh, it had to be Teru, obviously. I'm glazing Teru all day long on the Holiday. This really did feel like a vacation out for mid. They had a great time there, and they were just very relaxed about it. I think the fact that you put a lot of emphasis over towards intro as well as Fox towards that end game is great. And you know what? Teru did take a back seat, right? You know, Holiday is unreal at clearing those jungle camps with Cold Front and Barrel, but she opted to give a lot of that up over towards intro as well as Fox and just be this nightmare with the lasso in that early game. I was very pleased to see it, and some good pickoffs. It's nice to see a new character as well that can hold her own, just like Paradox in terms of that initiation. And also she's a very interesting character, and it's awesome to see these types of players just do fantastic work with it.
Dan, real quick before you make your point, I just gotta say the one overarching storyline to me between the regions on a caster level, Lasso versus Lasso. It's back here today.
I knew you were gonna say that. I was thinking that too. I was like, how do I say it? I've always said Lasso. So I don't know what the tally is for like who the lassoers and the lassoers are, but I'm the Lasso camp.
What?
Well, it is. I do believe it is Lasso. At least it's said in America there. I don't really know about the global standard, but in any case, look, I think Teru set up Made in Deadlock
right now.
You might be. Look, Teru set up mid the entire for the late game, right? Is that the early and mid game went well. It created a kind of a nest egg that was then just simply nurtured by mid the rest of the game. And again, the thing to me, Dan, that I look at for mid that, you know, we saw all game long and, you know, continues to be a defining factor to me is that the coaching discipline of the team and just going for objectives no matter what, securing the lead no matter what, not going for kills when not necessary, sublime. And I think that the one area that was a small play that really helped show this was when intro could have just absolutely fricasseed Brave Buffalo by the Walker, right? You have a Kelvin at like 25% HP, and intro just goes no. My priority is the Walker, gets the Walker, leaves, does not elaborate.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear the protocols that they had across the team based on the roles and the positions and you know, within the composition that they played, which is really cool to see. I mean, we saw it playing out just they, you know, because they didn't just accidentally get a Guardian at 450 or whatever it was specifically on intro's lane. He had the help to do it, and then his farming style after that to get a 4 or 5k souls ahead definitely very planned. The way that you would see them try to initiate certain fights and then immediately know the cutoff points. So it's like very clear shot calling, or if it's not shot calling, it's protocols. Okay, this is what we're expecting to get. We're looking for this thing. And as soon as we get it, we all just like retreat, which we saw also at that moment when they finally went into the base. They instantly left straight after the shrines are focused. They did it in like perfect timing. Like there's no messing around, shooting random stuff. Everyone laser focused, shrine, patron out. So yeah, I totally agree. And that's a really promising sign.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't really like from mid there was like sometimes a bit of an overcommittal to some of these plays. I think when they went for mid boss, there was a great play coming through from Happy Buffalo, and I was pleased to see it. I mean, they split down towards the walkers on lane 4 and lane 1, and also ran the urn when they were trying to bait that mid boss. And I think it was a case where a lot earlier they could have reacted to that and be like, right, they're obviously not going to try and play us over towards mid. We need to react and kind of change up our play style here. So I am wondering in the future, they're coming through for mid, how do things play out when the team isn't dancing to their tune? And I'm sure that honestly, we might just see OT, who had incredible macro play, be able to kind of figure out the little misbeats in the music.
Well, that was our second best of 1 of the day. Now we're heading into the best of 3s. Again, things a little bit different here in Pacific. It's going to be a best of 3 in the next matchup, and the winner of that will go on to face our initial defending team in Egoisto. Lots of action still left here on Deadlock Fight Night Pacific, presented by Intel. We'll be back after a short break.